This video will contain Black Clover manga spoilers. You've been warned. The Black Clover manga is going absolutely crazy right now. Yuno just swooped in and is making all the captains look silly, and he may well have just surpassed Asta, finally. And Black Clover is really all about Asta and Yuno competing to become the Wizard King, each of them constantly pushing and motivating each other to get stronger. They are the other's greatest inspiration. But has there really ever been a definitive time where Yuno was clearly more powerful than Asta? At least ever since Asta got his grimoire and sword all the way back in chapter 1? I think that this is a monumental moment within Black Clover's final saga, and that is that Yuno actually surpassed Asta, and it might even be a wide margin for now. Yuno is the frontrunner at becoming the Wizard King, but first I wanted a bit of a recap to show you just how often Yuno kept falling behind Asta in the past, and why because of that I think it's truly a monumental moment for Yuno to be doing what he's doing right now. While it seemed that Yuno was stronger than Asta for the majority of their lives, seeing as he had magic and Asta didn't, that all seemed to change once Asta received his 5th Leaf Clover Grimoire and anti-magic sword from the Haj Grimoire Tower. From this point on, they really seemed pretty even for the most part, but there was many times where it seemed that Asta was stronger after this point, as in the dungeon, Asta was doing a lot better against Mars than Yuno did, literally forcing Mars to go from his regular Nemean armor spell to turning into a massive titan. I guess you could say that Yuno technically surpassed Asta for a brief moment. That was when he got Bell, but he couldn't control Bell at this point. So I actually think that if Dungeon Arc Asta with his 2 swords faced Yuno with a Bell that he couldn't even really use, or at least didn't know how to use, Asta would have taken the W back in that arc. We don't get a lot on Yuno or Asta's power scaling between each other until much later in the Chitin arc. I think you could argue that Yuno is stronger than Asta at this point, as Yuno bodied a Diamond General. I mean, Asta technically did too, but he had help. As Asta's arms were cursed at this point, he couldn't even use them, so it isn't really fair. Later on in the Star Festival, we actually get a full-on clash between Asta and Yuno. When everyone begins to doubt Asta's power after he's named the 2nd most rewarded rookie, Yuno decides to shut all of the doubters up. Both him and Bell go full power and launched a spell with all of their might at Asta, who not only reacts to the spell, but destroys it with ease. At the very least, this shows that Asta and Yuno is just as strong as the other. But I think you could argue that a casual Asta negated a full-on attack from Bell and Yuno would mean he likely would have the upper hand if they were to fight seriously. Yuno would briefly quote-unquote surpass Asta while training in the Ultim Volcano. This was after he learned Mana Skin, but Asta would have pretty much immediately surpassed him once again after he learned how to activate his black form at will. Despite getting a much later start on the journey up the volcano compared to Yuno, Asta would blitz past him. And now this really gets to the most debatable moments in Asta and Yuno's rivalry, arguably one of their most controversial points in their power struggle, the Royal Knight's Exam. Spear Dive Yuno defeats Rill, and Black Asta defeats Longris. I remember when I was first making videos back in 2018, this was still one of the most hotly debated topics because Yuki Tabata robbed us of Asta versus Yuno, so we all had to argue amongst ourselves who would actually have won that fight. We've been waiting for so long, and I think this is so interesting because there is so much supporting both sides of the argument. Like, sure, Yuno himself stated that he had surpassed Asta, but he can't sense how strong Asta is inherently. And sure, Yuno faced a captain, while Asta faced a vice captain. But Yuno barely beat one of the weaker captains with a Spirit Dive, whereas Asta easily defeated one of the strongest vice captains, Longris. Don't forget that the negative mana was leaking into Longris from the reincarnation magic, making him more than 2 times stronger with each rage boost. So it's a lot more nuanced than just Yuno fought a captain and Asta fought a vice captain. So please comment down below if you want me to make an entire video dedicated to the hypothetical final match that we should have gotten in the Royal Knight's Exam. I'd love to make that video, but for now, I'll say that they were tied in that arc. Now, despite the elf arc teasing Asta versus Yuno once again, as Yuno turned into an elf, which were the antagonists at the time, but Yuno actually retained his consciousness, so we would not get Asta versus Yuno in this arc again. We would get Asta and Yuno versus Licht instead. And again, a lot of the elf arc arguments is very debatable on who is stronger between Asta and Yuno, but it really is Asta most of the time, if there ever is one of them in the lead. Because again, for the most part, they were pretty equal. For like a page, Yuno was clearly above Asta when he got Zephyr, but the next page, Asta got Black Divider, and then Yuno would pull ahead again. but that wasn't him per se. Asta was getting tired while Yuno was benefiting from a support combo spell from Licht and Lumiere that was filling up his magic power and even making him stronger and faster than he already was. But even with that help, Asta would clearly surpass Yuno when he had his limit break Black Divider that was massive. I'm not going to talk about the entirety of the Spade Saga. The main reason is that I have already made a full video dedicated to every version and form of Spade Asta and Spade Yuno fighting each other and who would win those, but I'll at least mention the important ones from that. Like, sure, Yuno got a second Grimoire which gave him star magic, but I don't think you can even consider him stronger than Asta. I'd say that they are pretty much the same. Like, Yuno is probably more agile and versatile because of star magic and he can stay in his form longer, but Asta has the elemental advantage and anti-magic, has higher durability as he took many hits from Lucifero and survived, and even Asta's passive anti-magic was so strong that it would negate any of Yuno's stars that had got near him. Then top it off with True Devil Union and Yuno didn't have a shot against Spade Asta. But finally we've been met with Black Clover's final saga, the Ultimate Wizard King Saga. Yuno probably has surpassed Asta, but it might not even be a simple surpassed. He might have just blown clear past him and moved up an entire different tier of power than Asta. Now I will say, sure, Asta will likely surpass Yuno again, but that is for future Broku to worry about. Yuno kinda just showed up and showed Lucius the Gratis who's boss. Some people are trying to come in and say this was another bullshit Yuno ass pull. Bro is just walking plot armor. Absolutely not, guys. Plot armor is essentially plot convenience or an ass pull, something that shouldn't make sense or is not foreshadowed. If I was able to make a whole ass video nearly 3 months ago predicting some of the ways that Yuno would be able to catch up to Lucius, then no, it's not an ass pull because it was foreshadowed if I was able to predict it. You may not like it and that's fine, but still, it's not an ass pull. One of the things that I have pointed out for people to pay attention to was just Yuno's new natural power level. What I mean by that is just his regular magic potency that he has. No hacks or strained effort techniques. His new power level went off the charts when we saw what he did against Adramalik in chapter 336, and Adramalik ran away scared. Adramalik said that he couldn't believe that Yuno had the possibility of getting that much stronger in just 15 months. Mind you, this Adramalik saw Yuno fight in the Spade Saga, and he knew that he had a 4-leaf Clover Grimoire. So he knows how strong Yuno was, and he knows that he can progress really fast because he has a 4-leaf Clover. And the craziest thing is that Adramalik considered base Yuno's power this crazy. I postulated that this likely meant that Final Saga base Yuno was stronger than Spade Saga Saint Yuno. And some of y'all took issue with that, but it's fine. But now it's just blatantly proven. When Lucius was attacking both the captains in the Noble Realm, which contained all of the Clover Kingdom's population because of the evacuation, basically Lucius commanded all of the angels in the sky to attack and kill everybody. The Magic Knights were all basically shitting their pants as just the sheer aura of the power of the angels that they wielded. You could even argue that Yami, nor William, or even the other captains were strong enough to negate this attack, since none of them stepped up to do anything to stop it. But Yuno just strolls right in, and not only just negates the attack, but does it casually in his base form. Yami saw base Yuno's power, and basically made the same exact statement as Adramalik. Yami and William were basically shitting their pants at Yuno's base power level. William actually goes so far to literally just state that base Yuno is more powerful than him, and immediately just crowns Yuno the captain of the Golden Dawn. Like, bro, I know William is kind of a joke, but you could argue that William was strong enough to force Lucius to transform, since Lucius did that in order to fight William, and protected himself with his own time orb, and then transformed. You got two captains shitting their pants over base Yuno's power, one of them blatantly stating that Yuno has surpassed him, and William also possibly forcing Lucius to transform. This will become pretty substantial evidence in this debate when we get to the finer details later in the video. After this, Yuno squares up with Lucius, but first he activates his mana zone that now covers the entire country. You can actually use this to get a calculation of how much stronger Yuno is, but the more important and interesting aspect of this is that this was a combo spell. Yuno combined his wind magic and star magic and created a spell called Neverland. Within this spell, which again covers the entire Noble Realm, would boost the magic of all of his allies and nerfs the magic of his enemies. And it must be a pretty crazy difference as well, because remember, the Magic Knights were absolutely terrified of the angels, and then after this spell initially starting, Sol was able to negate a blast of magic from the angel by herself, and then all the Magic Knights gained confidence in fighting them, which remember, I did predict that Yuno would use a combo spell between his own star and wind magic in that video. Neverland is not only a cool and useful spell for Yuno, but an amazing support spell for his allies, with a massive range of at least several kilometers by several kilometers, though it's likely more than that. as the diameter of the Clover Kingdom has been calculated to be roughly 3,000 plus kilometers long. But the even more crazy aspect of Yuno's Neverland is that it makes him impervious to time magic spells. Remember that Lucius's time orbs act as both time stop and power nullification, yet they are completely useless on Yuno, even base Yuno, and this is because of Neverland. Time does not pass in Neverland. It's even stated that within the Mana Zone spell, they control the flow of mana and time. After this, Yuno activates his full Spirit Dive, and Lucius recognizes him as his rival. This actually offends Yuno, because he's like, hell no, I already have a rival, and his name is Asta. Yuno then slashes down with Zephyr, slicing off Lucius's antler and breaking through into his chest. Now there is a weird plume of magic, so maybe Lucius is protecting himself here, and maybe he didn't wound his shoulder, but either way, Yuno sliced through Lucius's antler, which is crazy. Now, I already know that Asta stands are commenting down below that Asta knows Zetten now, and that with Zetten, he'd beat Yuno, and hell, maybe that's me who was saying that before, because I am an Asta stan. He's my favorite character in the series. But let me tell you why Zetten is probably not enough to beat Yuno, at least based on all the information that we have. But first, I have an important message for you guys. I see you guys have been enjoying my live streams lately. Remember there was that time a few weeks ago where I couldn't stream for like 2 weeks because of an issue I had with my internet service provider? Well, luckily for the both of us, the sponsor of today's video, SurfShark VPN, fixed all of that. That's right, there's actually a rather common issue that has to do with ISPs throttling service to customers when they're trying to live stream. Luckily, one of the ways to bypass that is simply by having a VPN. So I'm going to give a big thank you over to SurfShark VPN, and you should too by supporting their services. There are many other uses that you can get out of VPN. This summer I'll be going to Europe for the first time, and I'll be using SurfShark VPN, and I'll be able to access any of my shows that I could possibly miss out on while visiting there. But anyone can get use from SurfShark VPN. I know it, you guys absolutely love anime. Well, the Japanese version of Netflix is known for having the greatest selection of anime over any streaming service that we usually have access to in the West. I also feel much safer on SurfShark VPN. It's a digital mana skin. They encrypt your data while the Surfshark shield is active, which allows you to access your sensitive information even while you're on public Wi-Fi. You can even share one account with all of your friends and pay less than a piece of gum for a more secure and private online life. There's also a very special feature called a kill switch. For any of you super paranoid people, a kill switch simply cuts you off from the internet whenever you lose connection to your VPN, so as to let you know when you're no longer protected and to use caution until the connection is reestablished. So what are you doing? Sign up for SurfShark VPN through the link in the description, use code WizardKing, and get SurfShark VPN on a 83% discount and 3 extra months for free. There is a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's literally no risk, so please go down below and help support the channel and help support SurfShark VPN. Alright, so we got current Asta with Zetten versus current Yuno with Neverland. Who wins? Since it has been a few months, let's bring up how Asta did against Lucius. This whole fight of Asta versus Lucius is kind of muddied down because of how long it was and just general fandom misconception spreading. But Asta was actually doing fine against base Lucius, negating his attacks, landing hits on him, kicking him and sending him flying away. People act as if Lucius was bodying Asta, but he really wasn't. Then Lucius blatantly recognizes Asta's strength and transforms into his paladin form, making him many times more powerful in this state. He blitzed Asta and one-shot Asta with a salute. That's right, not a spell, not even a punch. Lucius saluted and one-shotted Asta. The disrespect is crazy, but that disrespect is what shows that Yuno is likely above Asta. This is what we know about Asta's power compared to Lucius. After Asta's defeat, he would meet Ryu, the shogun of the Land of the Sun. He tells Asta that he shouldn't go back to fight Lucius because he doesn't have a shot. Mind you that Ryu can see everything in the world, and talked about expressed knowledge that has happened in Asta's past. This would likely mean that Ryu knows about both Devil Union and True Devil Union. He knows that it's possible that Asta could activate these forms against Lucius, but instead, he pretty much begs Asta to stay and learn Zetten. But even with Zetten, Ryu isn't entirely convinced that Asta can beat Lucius, because he's actually gaining power over the 7 days leading up to Judgment Day. And this is why that even after Asta has mastered Zetten, that he's ushered to continue his training with the Ryuzen for the remaining 3 days. This would imply that Ryu believes that even after Asta mastering Zetten, that he might not be able to defeat Lucius. And again, this is him also having the knowledge that it's possible for Asta to pair Zetten with his regular Devil Union or even his True Devil Union. So what we got is that the current Zetten Asta that we have may or may not defeat Lucius, even with the possibility of him activating Devil Union or True Devil Union with Zetten. Compare this to Yuno, who has surpassed the captains in his base form, and if you look at it this way, William may have been strong enough to force Lucius to transform into his paladin form, which could mean that base Yuno scales above base Lucius. If that's the case, then base Yuno scales roughly to partial Devil Union Asta. But then he can do a Noble Realm-sized Mana-Zone combo spell with Bell that amps his own power further and go a Spirit Dive on top of that. If you were just to scale the actual multiplier of Yuno's Mana Zone in terms of a sheer magic power increase, it would be literally busted. Like typically his Mana Zone would be a few meters by a few meters by a few meters. Now it's a few kilometers by a few kilometers by a few kilometers. Remember, Mana Zone is absorbing nature's mana and essentially adding it to your own. This means that Yuno is absorbing literally millions of times more magic power than he was in the Spade Saga. And if he did learn this in the middle of those 7 days, then that alone will be enough to prove that he's stronger than Asta, because we know that Asta did not just get millions of times stronger training with the Ryuzen. But since we don't know when exactly Yuno attained this power, and you could argue that scaling Mana Zone sizes aren't the most consistent, let's just go past this point and find other evidence as well. So you got base Yuno scaling above base Lucius. Well, Spirit Dive 1 can be considered a 4 times multiplier, as it was called a many times increase in power in the light novel. Spirit Dive 2 is stronger than a regular Mana Zone, which we can pretty logically lowball to a 2 times multiplier. Spirit Dive 2 can also activate Mana Zone on top of itself, granting another 2 times multiplier. And Zephyr is greater than a Mana Zone increase in power, because it made Yuno go from being weaker than base Lumiere to being stronger than Mana Zone Lumiere, which means Zephyr is another 2 times multiplier. Now I'm getting the Mana Zone multiplier as a more than 2 times increase on average because we know that a Mana Zone usually increases the aura of somebody's magic by more than 2-fold, and also we know that when Merliona was attacked by a spell that was doubled back at her, her Mana Zone just negated it, so it should be a more than 2 times increase. And we saw that Yuno's Spirit Dive 2 was stronger than his Spirit Dive 1 with Mana Zone, so that's where I'm getting these numbers from. Then you also have Yuno's full Spirit Dive, and that would also be a large multiplier, but sadly it's just not really quantifiable. And then we can also tack on the combo spell. Combo spells are exponential boosts, so they're more than just the sum of the power. So that would be at least doubling Yuno's power again, putting him at 64 times stronger than his base, or making him over 64 times stronger than base Lucius. It would of course actually be far higher than that, but again, some of it's just not quantifiable. It's basically, look at it this way, he's far more than 64 times stronger than base Lucius. When you compare that to Asta, we can say that with Zetten, which considering it's a 24 to 40 times multiplier in power, he'd be 24 to 40 times stronger and faster in the brief moment he's using Zetten. As the Viz translation is actually incorrect, and Zetten really is either a dozens of times multiplier or many tens of times multiplier, depending on the translation, and that equates to a 24 to 40 times multiplier, not 100 times. But this leaves out that Yuno would be well over 64 times stronger and faster than Partial Devil Union Asta without Zetten, making it such a gap that Asta may not survive long enough against Yuno to actually get the Zetten off, and that might be even weaker than Yuno anyways, and not be enough to take him down. So even if Asta landed a Zetten, it might not be enough. But there's another way to scale Asta and make him a bit closer, and that is that he may have actually gotten a massive increase in his regular power over the course of his training in the Land of the Sun. I mean, we do know that he did get stronger, but it might be considerably high, as when he fights Ichika for the second time, his Partial Devil Union is stated to be equal to Ichika's spell form. He then spends time training with the strongest member of the Ryuzen, Yosuga, and then he returns and displays a feat that could be a game changer, as we see that the Beast Paladin Yurlu witnesses Ichika's full power Zetten, and that did not rouse his fighting instincts, but merely seeing Asta produce a single non-Zetten anti-magic slash, he actually does fear Asta and it rouses his fighting instincts. This brings about the possibility that Asta got over 24 to 40 times stronger while training with Yosuga, and that would narrow the gap a lot, as it would mean that Yuno is only more than 50% faster and stronger than Asta. But a Zetten strike from Asta, if he were to land it, would immediately end the battle in Asta's favor. But this isn't fair, as I said, as it really isn't that Yuno is only 50% faster and stronger than Asta. It's the only quantifiable number that we can use, but it leaves out the several large but unquantifiable gaps in power that Yuno has on top of it. For example, that full Spirit Dive amp. We don't know what it is, we know it's big though. So it's really that Yuno is far more than 50% more powerful than Asta. Sure, Asta has the elemental advantage with anti-magic, and we saw in the Spade Saga that Asta's passive anti-magic could negate Yuno's stars, but that was a Yuno who was weaker than Asta. This Yuno is far more powerful. And sure, Yuno's Neverland likely wouldn't be able to weaken Asta because he has anti-magic and not magic, and it's meant to lessen magic power, not anti-magic, but Yuno would still be amping himself in Neverland. And sure, Ichika already essentially created her own stars, and Asta just pulled out his Demon Destroyer sword and destroyed all of them at a range with Causality Break, magic. But remember that a Chica is equal to Asta, whereas Yuno, as I showed, has far higher scaling. And also, sure, Asta can destroy these amount of stars from somebody just as strong as him, but you may not have noticed that Neverland is literally made of likely thousands upon thousands of these stars swirling around within the mana zone. So I don't think that there's any valid argument to state that Asta will be able to destroy all of these stars and destroy the mana zone Neverland. Remember that while anti-magic is a powerful energy, it is not immeasurable. If the magic is too strong, the magic will overpower it, as shown many times in the series. Watch this video if you disagree. So the actual scaling with the numbers and multipliers puts Yuno above Asta, as well as he has better feats. He actually damaged Paladin Lucius and sliced off his antler. Though I will admit that there is one thing that can change the result of this video. That is that we know one of the effects of Neverland is that it weakens the magic of Yuno's enemies, meaning that it's entirely possible that this actually was not a full power Lucius, and it might not even grant him an actual feat. And Yuno might still be weaker than Asta. But if we look at the context of the statement, it says that it increases the power of his allies' spells and weakens his enemies, which means it could really only mean it's weakening the spells of his enemies, so that would not actually weaken Lucius's durability. So Yuno's feat still probably holds up, but even if it did weaken Lucius's magic power, let's say for devil's advocate argument, let's say that it did weaken Lucius's power, which would then lower his durability. It's likely not by much if it did, as if Yuno could not even weaken these angels enough to the point where a single magic knight could take them down. Instead, it still takes many magic knights to gang up on them, and these angels should be far weaker than Lucius, and since he's not nerfing them to oblivion, it means that Neverland is likely not nerfing Lucius that much at all, if it is nerfing his magic power and not just his spells. So overall, the preponderance of evidence shows that Yuno is stronger than Asta right now, and let's say maybe he's not, or let's say it's closer than maybe it is in this video. Maybe the next chapter will show that it's closer. Well, the thing is that Yuno still has surpassed Asta when it comes to becoming the closest to the Wizard King. Yuno is now the captain of the Golden Dawn. He's been granted that by William himself. Asta is only a senior magic knight first class, which it's close to captain, but it's not. But also, everybody sees Yuno as a Wizard King level fighter now because of his support spells, and he was also fighting a amped Wizard King. So even if maybe Yuno is not as far as ahead in terms of power scaling as this video displays, which I believe the evidence is there, if we're talking about who is the best candidate to be the Wizard King right now, it's Yuno, because of his support spells. That's one thing that Asta is severely lacking. I'm not saying that he has zero support spells, but Yuno has more, and his are a lot better. Also, keep in mind, Yuno is still not at full power here. We do know what Saint Stage looks like for Yuno. This is what Zephyr looks like in Saint Stage. It does not look like Saint Stage against Lucius right now, so Yuno is still not full power right now. So with that added on, I think it's even more apparent that Yuno has surpassed Asta. So with that being said, please comment your thoughts down below. Do you think that Yuno is stronger than Asta? And if you do so, how long do you think it's going to last? Because I do think that Asta will surpass him. It's just kind of how Black Clover works. But please do leave a like if you enjoy, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out SurfShark VPN down below. Help support me and the channel. With that being said, hope you guys all have an amazing day. Peace out.